All right, hello everyone. This is my attempt to explain the Slido professional license that we're going to be using for the ESDC Workforce Summit. So first off, the Slido license that we're using is the professional one-day event plan. And so there is a difference from what most people are familiar with in terms of Slido, in terms of what we can do. So I'll send the link to this, but you can see the link in the URL here, and you can go on and read this in more detail. But essentially, we won't be leveraging all of these options, but it's going to give us a lot more functionality in terms of what we need to do. The pricing for this, if anyone is interested in the future, the professional plan is what we bought for this. So it's $300 for the one-day event. Allows us up to 1,000 participants, gives us all of these other options to get questions that you would normally get. It does allow moderation where we could review the questions in advance and decide which ones were accepted and were posted. That would allow for some cleanup of the language and some back and forth with the person that submitted it. But until we have more experience with using Slido and we want to get fancy, we're going to go just with just the straight crowdsourced Q&A. There is a profanity filter that's built in, so that's automatically available to us. So we'll use that. And given that attendees have been handpicked to attend this event, it's a very low risk of that. This is a feature that I may want to investigate in terms of, as I'm looking at the way the question period will play out in the plenary room. If I don't want to add a separate room, I may want to incorporate labels, but I'll talk about that a little bit later on. And this, again, is kind of what it gives us. So that's the professional license. That's what we have. And it allows us, the biggest thing that it lets us do is set up multiple rooms in Slido. So again, I'll share this link in the reference document when I send this video so that folks have this. But this is essentially what I've done to create the different breakout rooms for our event. And here's the detail and the explanation of it. So we have separate breakouts for the pre-event, or we've created a separate room for a pre-event survey so that people can get familiar and start using Slido right away. And I've sent the instructions on how to initiate that in our joining instructions with folks. I do recommend we send that as the last email we send so that no one accidentally goes in and sees us kind of playing with data and then allows us to reset at the very last minute. So we've got a clean set of data and reports. So we can add rooms, deactivate rooms. We will be doing this. So the AV team will be able to take this on for us, but turning on the available rooms only when we want them to be seen. So at the beginning of the event, we'll probably only turn on the pre-event and maybe the plenary room. And then as the event unfolds, the AV person will be able to make those other rooms visible so that people will see that on their app. And we can have multiple co-hosts in assisting with this event. So that's what we're looking to recruit. And I'm hoping this video will make everyone comfortable with playing that role. So I think that's pretty much it for that. We can continue to kind of test and use the Slido, kind of our event, as much as we want until the day of. So that even though it's a one-day event license, we can continue to kind of play around and create different scenarios in there. Obviously, with the time we have left, we're not going to be using this as very much of a sandbox, and we're just going to focus on getting it done and moving on to the next step. Once we've done all of our testing and playing around, here's the place where we'll go in and the details in terms of how we'll reset all the polls and delete any of the testing data. And I guess that's just a repeat of that link. So this is our system right here. So first things first, you'll see that there are multiple breakout sessions. So again, there's the pre-summit engagement, a plenary room, and then a breakout for each of the 6 breakouts that we've identified. Day 2, these are still a little bit of a work in progress, but I have a day 2 some polls created. This actually should be moved up, so I'll move that in terms of the order of the flow. And then there's a post-session request for input that could be just reference to the discussion paper or something something of that nature. And again, the ones below day one are still a little bit tentative, but I think we're in good shape. The real key piece that needs to be done by someone in ESDC right now is just review the wording that I've put in for each of the polls, make sure that it's acceptable, and then to create the French version of that. I'm hoping that we can still go with English first, but I'm guessing because the event is in Quebec, we may have to go with French first and then English. But I'll let you guys decide that. So this is essentially what the person will need to do. They'll need to select the breakout room from here. When you get the co-host link, it'll bring you to this dashboard. Click on each of the breakouts, review the text in there. You can edit the text by going in here. In some cases, I've added in a description that would only be visible for us now, and that could be deleted afterwards. And you just simply go to each question, edit, and put in the appropriate text. If the text of the question is too long, we could add a second set of questions, maybe list the French questions first and then the English, or the English first and then the French. Again, whatever is the appropriate way to do that, or alternate French, English, so that people can just skip a question if they don't understand it. But again, I'll leave that decision for you folks when you see what it looks like with the translated text in there. Unfortunately, there's not a separate interface to go in and choose French. I think they can operate choose French in terms of the what's the word I'm thinking of, the menus and whatnot. But in terms of the content, there's no way to kind of separate that as far as I know. But I am not the Slido expert. I've learned a lot, but that's something that we would have to do ourselves, I believe. In terms of so essentially that it's going in each of the plenary rooms, and each of the breakout rooms. So there's a pre-summit. The plenary room is the one that's the most complicated. This has the questions that I would propose using just to get people engaged from the start. If we go into edit, you'll see that again, I've put in some notes here to the project team. So this is just an example of one option that we could use to practice and collect the information. I put in this one as an alternative as well. And so I would only use this question or the word cloud. I wouldn't use both. And given that one of our objectives was networking, I put in this question just at the start, just to say how many new people have you met so far, or something to that effect, just to reinforce the networking. Throughout the day, we're going to be using the same survey poll. Now, a survey poll, again, is something that's unique to the professional license. What it allows us to do is ask multiple questions at the same time and essentially keep the poll open so that we don't have to do the manual intervention. And so the two poll questions that I'm proposing is just, what is something that surprised you from what you were hearing, and what didn't you hear that you think is important? Once people submit their responses to this, they'll have the ability to go in and edit their response as long as that poll is open. And we would plan to keep the polls open until that portion of the agenda is over. This is for the poll option. If we want to see, I'll click here. So this is what the participants would see. So if at any time you want to kind of test, you can do it right here in the main area. If you want to view it on your phone, you can just go to slido.com, enter that link, or click that link from your phone, and you can use your phone as a testing as well. But this is what the participants would see when they log into Slido. So when they first go in, because I have the pre-summit room opened and I have the poll active, this is what they're being asked. So they do see that description that I have in there currently that obviously we would delete. Then they can alternate between the different rooms. So they move into the plenary room. Again, because I have this poll active, it's visible. And so they'd be able to see this and submit something. And if they go into one of the breakouts, I don't think, so I don't have any polls active for breakout 1 right now. So they don't see any polls, but they can go into the question and answer. And that was just me doing, this is a test. And likewise, you could do something in there as well. This is another test. And we'll clear all this data out. So we don't have to worry about that. And that is essentially because I have all of the breakout rooms or most of the multiple rooms visible. They're all here. But maybe what I'll do is just close that. So that's the participant mode. You can view it there. If I go into edit the sections, this is where the AV team will do the heavy lifting and support us. But for the multiple rooms that I've created, we can simply turn off the ones that we don't want seen. And I will take this opportunity to move day 1 evaluation up, but I'm going to turn it off. And you'll see there are a few other breakout rooms that I had created that were not visible. And again, we can turn these off. So the plan would be that during the morning, they only are seeing the pre-summit engagement, and after the event starts, we would turn that off, and then the only room they would see is the plenary room. But I would recommend that we leave the 2 of these on at the start, or that we turn the breakout groups on so that when I'm explaining Slido, people can go into their phone and can kind of see what I'm talking about. But we can sort all that out on the day of. So really, again, the priority area is approval of the language that is in each of these. The way the data is organized on the plenary is I have it set up in terms of sessions. So you need to kind of select the down arrow in order to be able to see everything. These engagements kind of at lunchtime are really just to kind of get people again using Slido, and AV will activate these for us. There's going to be a AV technician that is much more familiar with Slido than I am, who will be controlling all of this in the plenary. In the breakout sessions, let me just go there for a second. In the breakout sessions, when we start the breakout sessions, essentially, again, the AV will start the poll. So he'll just go into each of the breakouts. He'll launch the polls, and then they'll be visible to participants in participant mode. So now you can see, if we go into, we can see that the questions are visible there to the participants. They can submit questions. The questions will be unique to this breakout room as well. And I think that covers the bulk of what I'm asking. So a little bit longer of a video than I had planned. There are some other links that I'll share. If anyone is not familiar with Slido, they have tons of webinars in terms of getting started. They also have their help desk. And again, I'll follow up with the emails and the links to that. Hopefully this was useful, and I look forward to following up with whoever's taking the pen on this so that we are in good shape and ready to rock and roll next week. Thank you.